April, 1457. A banquet hall in Wallachia. 200 noble women sit beside their husbands. Silk dresses brush marble floors. Gold jewelry catches candlelight. Wine is poured. Laughter fills the hall. It's Easter. By sunrise, their husbands will be dead. Impaled in the courtyard. And these women, daughters of aristocrats who had never touched dirt in their lives, will begin a death march into the mountains. One of them was named Voika. 23 years old. Married for 2 years. Her hands had never held anything heavier than a wine cup. Within a week, those hands would be unrecognizable. Skin split open. Nails torn off. Bones visible through torn flesh. She would drag stones up a mountain to build a castle for the man who murdered her husband. She worked until her clothes rotted off her body. Until there was nothing left to cover her. Until she could no longer tell her own blood from the rocks she carried. Voika was one of 200. Most of them died on that mountain. And this was not an accident of war. What Vlad Dracula did to women was the strategy. It was the message. It was the point. He impaled mothers beside their daughters. He flayed wives for failing to sew a proper shirt. He turned female bodies into warnings so horrifying that even the Ottoman Sultan turned his army around. Hollywood gave you a vampire who seduces women in castles. History gave you a monster who destroyed them in public squares. This is not what happened to Vlad. This is what happened to them. The women history decided you should never know about. Where the darkness began. Vlad spent 6 years as a child hostage in the Ottoman Empire. He watched. He learned. Terror was a tool. Bodies were messages. And the fastest way to break a society was to break its women. When Vlad returned to Wallachia, his father was dead. His older brother had been tortured and buried alive, betrayed by the very nobles they trusted. The boy who left never came back. What returned was a man who believed that controlling women meant controlling everything. So he began with the wives of the men who destroyed his family. The Easter Banquet. Easter Sunday, 1457. The noble families of Wallachia gather at Vlad's palace. Boyars in their finest robes. Their wives glittering with jewels. Children laughing between courses. They think this is a celebration. They are wrong. Mid-banquet, Vlad stands and asks a single question. How many princes have you lived under? Nervous laughter follows. Even the youngest noble counts 7 rulers. The oldest counts 30. Each one betrayed. Each one murdered. Each one replaced. Vlad nods slowly. That, he says, is the problem. The doors slam shut. Guards flood the hall. The old boyars are dragged outside and impaled in the courtyard. Their screams echo through the stone walls. Voika hears her father-in-law begging for mercy. Then silence. For the younger nobles and their families, Vlad has other plans. Still dressed in Easter silk, the women are chained together. Iron cuffs bite into their wrists, cutting skin. Before the march begins, Vlad forces them to watch. Their husbands raised on stakes. Some die quickly. Some don't. Voika finds her husband in the forest of bodies. He is still alive. Still calling her name. She cannot go to him. She cannot look away. Then the march begins. The march to Portray. 50 miles north. Through forests. Through mud. Through rain. No food. No rest. Women who had lived their entire lives in carriages now stumble barefoot over rocks. Some collapse on the first day. The guards drag them. When dragging becomes too slow, they leave them behind. The wolves do the rest. At the ruins of Portray Castle, Vlad is waiting. You will rebuild this fortress, he says. With your hands. For months, they carry stone. Silk dresses tear. Then rot. Then disappear. Soon there is nothing left on their bodies. 200 noble women exposed to sun and cold, hauling rocks up a mountain with bare hands. Voika's hands split open on the third day. By the second week, she cannot feel them. A countess beside her, who had never lifted anything heavier than embroidery, falls from the cliff on day 12. No one is allowed to stop. At night, they sleep on bare stone. No blankets. No shelter. Some women do not wake up. Their bodies are dragged aside. The work continues. When the castle is finally finished, only a handful remain alive. They are kept as servants in the fortress they built with their blood. Their noble titles erased. Their families gone. Women as law. Poetry was not justice. It was theater. Vlad wanted every noble family to understand one thing. If your husband falls from favor, you go with him. For ordinary women, the rules were even more terrifying. A wife whose sewing displeased him. A widow who remarried too quickly. A woman accused of infidelity. Their punishments were written on their bodies. Flaying. Impaling. Public torture lasting hours. The message was absolute. Your body does not belong to you. It belongs to the prince. Women learned that survival meant one thing. Be invisible. The Forest of the Impaled. Winter, 1462. Vlad crosses into Ottoman territory. Village after village disappears. Women and children are not spared. Entire families are impaled together. Mothers beside daughters. Some are still alive days later. Outside Targovist, the Ottoman army stops. Before them stretches a field nearly a mile long. 20,000 bodies on stakes. Men. Women. Children. The smell reaches the army before the sight. The Sultan, conqueror of Constantinople, looks once. And turns his army around. Vlad had won. The price was paid in the bodies of women. The last woman. There is one woman history barely names. Vlad's first wife. Spring, 1462. Ottoman banners approach Poenary Castle. She knows what capture means. She also knows what her husband does to women. According to legend, she says, "I would rather be food for the fish than a prisoner of men." She jumps. The river below still bears her name. The truth. Voika. Ilinka. Thousands of nameless mothers. They were not seduced. Not romanticized. They were destroyed. Hollywood gave you fangs and romance. History gave you stakes and silence. And the most disturbing truth of all. It worked. For 6 years, a small kingdom held off the greatest empire on earth, not through power, not through strategy, but through terror aimed directly at women. We remember the monster. We forget the victims. That's what this story is here to fix.